full-time on this.
Yeah, and I believe all of you knows me, so I'm Cezary. I'm the engineering director in Poznań office, and I'm responsible for various projects here, including also SRW. Yeah, so it's also my area of interest. Yeah.
Yeah, we already met.
Yeah, we met.
Of SRW site.
Mm-hmm.
Like an initial point for the developers to start.
Yeah, that's. Oh, can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
I'm just showing the
Oh,
components
you're
on the
showing
screen.
it? No, we're not. We're not seeing
Oh,
it. It's a little bit small for me to see it.
oh, is
actually.
it? Okay,
This
I'm
one's-
sorry.
Yeah, this is a more updated one, which is quite not so easy to describe. I was rather,
Yeah.
and maybe there's the old one. Kath, was there, or is
Yeah,
this?
maybe. I just got this in the manifesto. I tell you what, Ian,
Yeah.
let's not. If you just give a high, just as you would do, just give a
Yeah.
technical overview, and I'll
There's a
just
really
send you a
good,
link to this quickly.
There is a really good diagram though, so that's the one I wanted to show. Do you know what? I can probably
Okay.
find it. 'Cause,
Okay, is it in this manifesto here?
I'm sure. Wait, it certainly was. So.
Here's some view integration. Solution overview.
You know the one
I think
I
a lot
mean.
of these.
It's got view components on the left, and then the SRW components on the right, and just shows the integration
Yes.
of
Where
the
is
high
that?
level view of everything, which I think was just a nice way to present it. Sorry, guys, it's
That's okay. Yeah.
here we go. I found it. I think.
Brilliant. I'll stop
if it isn't
sharing.
in the doc, we'll make sure it is. Let me move my screens around a bit. Hold on a second, I'm nearly there with it.
Okay.
Do I do that? Yeah, there we go. So, share my screen. Oh gosh, I'm on Hangouts on Air. How do you share screen? Oh, there it is. No. They keep moving it, don't they?
It's a nightmare, isn't it? Every time I use Hangouts, I'm like, oh, what am I doing?
How it used to be. There we go. I'm showing my screen now, if you can see that.
Oh, that's better. Yeah, that's nice.
This diagram is quite easy to see. On the left here, I'll share this link if it's not already there, but on the left, we've got the view system that Kath was talking about. So the users that use that are the test takers, and they use that to take the Pearson test of English academic being its universities, and they use it for entry into academic establishments. That's what it's designed for. View have this service called R10, real-time event notification. That then actually sends the score data and the test taker data to what we call SRW. So when Kath said everything here in View already existed, so this project includes this new R10 integration, so that all that score data is within the SRW system. The SRW system then is used by institutional users and Pearson admins. There is a client application, an admin UI. It uses Apogee for secure connections. Security is really important in this project. It's personal information, users' test scores, details about the users. And then there is a back end that has a few components that Kath called out, PDF generation, for instance. We've got a scores receiver, and then the application services and some migration tools and synchronization tools. Then the application data stored within databases on the SRW system. So the client application is for institutional users to come in and search for those scores that have been received over the R10. Really high level architectural view of the components within this system.
Okay.
Sure. Okay.
And I can show you just quickly, we can just jump into have a look at the front end. So I can show you some of the things that have already been developed. So let me do that now. I'll share my screen now. Try and figure out how to. So I'm now in the QA system, QA environment, and I'm going to sign in. Now, one thing to mention is that at the moment, we only have 2 roles. We have the super admin who can see all customers, so all of those institutions who use score reporting website. And we have the score report user. So a score report user exists within an institution. And really their journey is about being able to retrieve and view score reports. But they can't actually manage users, okay? So there's a whole kind of area here about managing users and managing institutions. The super admin can do that for all institutions, but the role that we will need to introduce, importantly, is a local institution admin who can then take on the management of users for a particular institution. Super admins are typically Pearson, right? They're typically us. Usually our product operations support teams will take on a super admin role. They're there to support customers. They can go in and have a look at things if needed. But ultimately, we want these institutions, these universities, to manage themselves and manage their own users and be able to create users and deactivate users if people leave the institution. So we will need one of the priority tasks for us will be to introduce that local admin role in the next phase. We're going to need to make some improvements that we didn't really get around to making. So at the moment, all of the existing customers are imported here. And you can see we have quite a few institutions. We don't have a way of searching them or filtering or sorting very easily at the moment. We've just got a really basic ascending, descending sorting. So actually, if you want to try and locate an institution, it's not particularly easy. So we're going to need to do a bit of work around this just to improve it. If I open an institution, I'll see this. And that's because on QA, we've imported institutions as they currently stand, but we haven't yet imported users. So they will be the active users associated with an institution, local admins, or score report users. This is probably a detail too far, but just so you know, when we import users, we will have to reassign their roles, or super admin, or somebody will need to reassign their roles, because unfortunately, when we export the data from View, we don't actually get the role of the user, so that will need to be reset, and then passwords will need to be reset too. So there's still some work to do around importing users. And then the other main function is searching for a score report. I bet it hasn't remembered the registration ID, so I'm going to need to go get it. Excuse me, guys, a minute. I'm going to jump into our Slack channel and just go find a good registration ID that I can search under. I know I have this written down somewhere too, but lots and lots of messages. Oh, damn it, where's it gone? Ah, here's one, I think. Let's try this guy here. Okay, so I can search by the registration ID. Now, Ian mentioned R10, which is how we get the data about the candidate and the tests they've taken and where they've allocated the scores. We get various R10 feeds. You'll see that in the documentation. And all of this carries data about the candidate, their test results, and where they've actually allocated their test results to. The main data point that an institution will search for a test taker by is their registration ID. So that's really, really important as an identifier. There is also a test taker ID, confusingly. The test taker ID is unique to the candidate, but the registration ID is about that particular test that candidate has taken. So this is the main data point that a university and institution will use to search for a candidate. We have date of birth as optional, but they don't need to search by date of birth. And then they can very quickly retrieve a score report. This is really different now for customers because before, as I mentioned, there was no web-based report at all. They actually could, the only way they could view a report was by downloading a PDF, whereas now they can view the report on screen. So we've got the kind of the format here. You can do, it's split into two. So the top level view is really seen as the critical information, the immediate information that an institution would want to see. So it's telling me immediately when the test was taken, where it was taken. Obviously, it would have the names appearing here and the scores. And then if I want to go and see more information, then I just use this view more, view less button down the bottom. And I can go and see the breakdown of the scores. And I can see a bit more information about the candidate. So, you know, what's their country of origin, the country of residence, email, and whether they're a first-time test taker. Because it is possible to take the test of PTE academic again and overwrite your scores. Okay, and then obviously the web-based report is great because it's immediate. It gives the university, the score report uses some immediate information, but it is still important to these guys that they can get access to a downloadable version of the report. So we didn't want to lose this completely. This has all been developed, so PDF download has all been developed on the front end rather than the back end. And if I open it here, you can just see that there's a nice PDF version of the score report. So right now, I'm talking to customers all around the world about this new report design because this is really different. It's a totally different experience for customers, and we really want to get their feedback at this early stage about whether these designs are inspiring confidence or whether actually, you know, there were things about the old report that they preferred. So it's timely because obviously we're moving into our next phase of development to get this feedback now and just to make sure that we are on the right lines with everything. So that's the main journey as we've developed it so far. Then we have our backlog in Jira, which you guys will have access to now. Because our previous team left quite rapidly because of structural changes here at Pearson, a number of tasks were completed, but we are troubleshooting some other issues, particularly around receiving R10 notifications on production. So we did some testing with our QA environment and Views QA environment, which is known as CTT. Hopefully that acronym will be somewhere in your documentation along with the others. But we are experiencing some blockers with getting the R10 notifications to feed through to production, and we're troubleshooting those at the moment. And then there is a backlog of work that we will need to do for the next phase. So, you know, some major stories will be, for example, improving some of the user experience, introducing that administrator role. There are also some things about the journey itself that are required. So I mentioned searching by registration ID, but there is a strong need with some customers to have a different way of searching for a score report. And I won't go into that now because we're still refining what that requirement is. But ultimately, we may introduce a different method of searching and a different ID to search for a candidate by. The other thing to say is that we are working with View because View also have a lot of dependent work to do on their side. So they have a team based in the US who we're actually troubleshooting with right now for some of the issues I mentioned. and they have a project manager based in the UK called Pooja. So Kalpana, when Pooja's back from holiday, you and I will meet her and we'll talk about our respective plans. So another key thing for us is to be able to line up our plans with Vue, and to speak frankly, I think we need to get better at doing that. I don't think we were always that effective at lining our plans up with Vue in the previous phase. So I think really calling out those dependencies and understanding how the teams develop together is going to be quite key for this phase.
Okay, Kat.
So I have quite a lot of work to do on Jira. I'm just working with stakeholders currently, looking at our priorities for the next phase, so I can just make sure that we are refined where we need to be refined. Kalpana, you and I have discussed the time needed to get the team up to speed. Also, Vue, Pearson Vue are also currently getting their team in place for the next phase and getting their plan together. So we're thinking that probably development, maybe optimistically, but hopefully not too optimistic, will start in early September. And there will be some onboarding work for the team to do in the meantime. The first thing is obviously the documentation, but we also would be good to get the environments set up as well as soon as we can, so we can really begin that transition. So I will use the time to make sure that we have a refined backlog that's prioritized and we're really, really clear on the stories we're moving into our first development sprint, which let's assume will be from early September.
Okay, Kat. Yeah,
Okay.
right. The team is working on setting up the environment.
Okay.
And meantime, I'll also share the documents so that they can go through and get back if for any queries.
Okay, that's great. Ian and Cesare, Ian, we've sort of talked about the idea of getting up environments up and running quite quickly. Is there something that we should kind of raise with the team here?
Well, that's what I was going to ask, actually. Somebody said there's somebody setting up an environment. What is that environment, and what plans have you got around that, and how far have you got with it?
Yeah, for front-end development, we need to install Node.js, and for version control, Git source tree like that.
In the editor, Visual Studio.
Visual Studio editor. So we need to set up this type of tools in our local machines. For backend also,
Okay.
.NET environment should be set up like that.
So have you gone through the source control, the Bitbucket repository at all?
Yeah,
we don't have access for that.
Yeah, we don't have.
Bitbucket, yeah, we are yet to raise access, because today only they got their ID. So now we can raise access for the tools.
Okay. The only reason I say is because there is quite comprehensive instructions in there how to build a development environment. Certainly, if I was starting new on this project, that is the first thing I would do, actually follow that instructions and go through building a development environment. That's all the components. It all uses Docker and Docker Compose, so I think it's pretty much an automated process. I know the old developers, the previous developers, were pretty proud of it. So, I'd be very interested to hear if you do that, to let me know how you get on with it. I haven't actually run through that process, but it would be something I would suggest you do and would do myself.
Okay, we'll go through it.
If you have any questions on it, please ask me, because I know where the documentation is. I've run through the instructions. I just haven't actually gone through and done it myself.
Okay.
Guys, I'm going to have to drop out now because I've got to go to another call. So, Kalpana, we are due to meet Pooja